Okay, we're going to be reading chapter 1 of Planimal Magic. So, there's a little bit here about the story first. It says, Joe is staying with his cousins in the country where his uncle runs a scientific research institute. Late at night, there's a terrible, heart-stopping wail coming from outside. Who or what is making it? When Joe, his psychic dog Bingo, and cousin Molly embark on a search, they make a magical, mysterious discovery which some people will do anything to keep secret. So, Planimal Magic. Chapter 1. Night Noises. Joe woke suddenly. What had he heard? The weird sound had gone, but something of it still lingered in his head like a shadow. Joe lay very still, listening, arms straight at his sides. That reminded him of his mother. Then he remembered he wasn't at home and opened his eyes. The noise again. Something in the garden. A terrible cry. A heart-stopping, nerve-tingling wail. Animal. But what animal made a noise like that? Bingo? Bingo's snoring stopped abruptly. There was a pause. Then he scrambled onto the bed beside Joe. Good boy, whispered Joe, wrapping his arm around him. That's better. Sliding his other hand under his pillow, Joe closed his fingers around his mum's last present to him, magic dice. Black and white like Bingo and just as lucky, she'd said. Mum, Mum! And suddenly Joe was sliding through time, back to his last talk with his dad. Mum'll miss you while you're at your cousin's. She won't even notice, said Joe gloomily. She doesn't care. Joe, don't say that. If she cared, she'd get out of bed. Can't you just make Mum get up? How, for God's sake, how? Joe's mum had had cancer. She was okay now, only she couldn't quite believe it, and the only place she felt safe was in her bed. Listen, I'm sorry I shouted, said his dad. You go to Molly's. I'll try and get the place tidied up, maybe even get to work on that garden, so when you come back, things will be better, and Mum will want to get up. Okay? Joe sat up in bed. I must stop thinking about home, he chided himself. Molly asked me to come. I need to think about her. Late next morning, he and Bingo made their way down the wide panelled stairway to the kitchen. The kitchen was vast, with a high, dusty ceiling. Old biscuit tins were piled haphazardly on top of the cupboards, labelled curtain hooks, fuse wires, pegs, and such like. But Joe was pretty certain they were empty. The two enormous windows were covered with glass shelves packed with potted plants. Leaves trailed around the windows and clung to the light fittings. There's only porridge or toast, said Molly, making a funny face. You know, Dad, he still thinks cornflakes are modern. Molly's dad, Dr. Robert Martin, was a scientist who, although forward-thinking in science, was very backward-thinking in other areas. Joe grinned. Doctor's orders, eh? When Molly didn't return his grin, Joe chewed his toast thoughtfully. So, what's up, Moll? He said. Molly twisted her long, straw-coloured hair round and round her fingers. Well, she began. Joe threw his last crust for Bingo, who leapt up and caught it. Come on, Moll, before Bingo, the only psychic dog in England, tells me all. He waited, noticing that the jam he'd been spreading on his toast had discs of white, furry mould on it, just like home. Oh, oh, oh! Bingo's sudden bark was right by Joe, and he jumped up, knocked his coffee over and sent his chair crashing to the floor. Oh, Bingo, now look what I've done. And we'll tune in for chapter 2 tomorrow.